Welcome to Ask the Expert, Ask Us Anything on Windows Virtual Desktop session. Today, you get to talk to our Windows Virtual Desktop experts, share your feedback, ask questions, and we love to hear from you. So, a few pointers on how to engage our experts. Please post your questions in the chat window, upload the questions that you really like, and then also our experts will answer those questions over chat or on video. And once the session is concluded, we'll also share some resources with you. Few pointers on the etiquette. This session is being recorded. Please help the moderators by not spamming or posting inappropriate comments. And please adhere to the Microsoft Code of Conduct. And this is the Microsoft Code of Conduct in more detail. I will let it stay there for a few seconds so you folks can read it, and we can get started after that. So we have some experts who are on camera, as some of you can see, and but we also have a huge panel of amazing experts off camera as well, who will be answering your questions in the chat. So please feel free to ask as many questions as you like, and we'll try our best to answer all of them. That being said, let me introduce myself. I'm Sparsha Grabat. I'm a product marketing manager on the Windows Virtual Desktop team. With me, I also have Christian Brinkhoff, who is a global black belt on the Windows Virtual Desktop team. And we also have two other members on camera today. We have Stefan Georgiev. He is a senior program manager on the Windows Virtual Desktop team. And then we have John Federico, who is also a senior product marketing manager on the Windows Virtual Desktop team. That being said, let's get started with the questions. All right, so I'm seeing there's already a bunch of questions coming through. Let's see. All right. Let's get started with the first one here. Okay. Is there an option to restrict access to WVD for users based on their private IPs? Not public, but address range. Stefan or Georgiev? Sorry, Stefan or Christian?
I can take that one. So currently that's not available yet. Private link is something we are working on. So please stay tuned for the public roadmap on aka.ms/WVD roadmap, as we will release something over there once we go in public preview.
Great, thank you. All right, here's another one. Microsoft has partnership with Citrix as well as VMware for virtual desktop solutions. In which scenario an organization should consider WVD or Windows Virtual Desktop over Citrix or VMware Horizon? John, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I can take that one. The simplest answer is most of the market and most organizations already use Citrix or VMware today. There's a portion that are using remote desktop services, and for them, Windows Virtual Desktop natively is probably a great solution. But for those who are starting with a Citrix deployment, XenApp, XenDesktop, or a VMware Horizon deployment, it's the easiest path to Azure and to bringing your desktops and apps to cloud and Windows Virtual Desktop by just using their cloud services. So much like Windows Virtual Desktop is a service that you connect to in Azure, they have Azure built cloud services, Citrix cloud services, and VMware Horizon cloud on Azure services. So you can run it with hybrid support, you can run it with advanced management, power management, advanced tooling and management. The other thing that is really important is it's just the same experience for IT and for end users. So there's not necessarily a lot of change that's required to be able to start using Windows Virtual Desktop immediately.
Fantastic. Thanks, John. All right, here's another one that's coming through. Are there specific limits in the ARM implementation, meaning number of app groups per host pool or number of session hosts per host pool, etc.?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I recently did, together with a Microsoft field team, we created like a documentation page on the Azure Solution Center platform. that you can find on aka.ms/WVD best practices and as well FSLogix best practices. And that points you to a page where you can find all the service limits, such as the one that you just called out, like app group. Max of app groups, for example, but as well an ARM limit that is active on your Azure subscription. So there are some limits active. So if you have an enterprise scale deployment larger than 5,000 virtual machines, we, for example, recommend you to put them in a hub spoke manner. So use 2 or more subscriptions. But everything can be found in that article. So I would recommend you to go to that page.
Fantastic. Thanks, Krishan. Next question. Best practices for keeping Windows Virtual Desktop VMs up to date for both Windows and software updates if you're using auto-scaling. Krishan?
Yeah, it's another great question. So auto-scaling, in terms of auto-scaling the session hosts and save costs to shut them down, that's available on Microsoft Docs. You can find it over there. Best practices on like updating your images. Yeah, we have a variety of services that you can use for that. If you use like Windows Server as an operating system, you can use Azure Update Management as a service as part of Azure, but you can use Intune as well. We announced that this week for single session Windows 10 desktops. You can use SCCM or Microsoft Endpoint Configuration Manager as well, which supports now as well the filtering of Windows 10 multi-session. So that would be probably the best, the best way of managing and maintaining your updates. Windows updates or Windows updates for business is supported as well. So that would probably be a good starting point to look at those options.
Fantastic. Thanks. All right. Will there be a best practices guide on what should be excluded with FSLogix? Stefan?
Yes, so the short answer is you should use the default profile as much as possible.
Hi, Stefan. Would you mind adjusting your mic? It's not coming through clear.
Is this better?
Yes, that is perfect.
Thank you. So yeah, the best practice for FSLogix is to use the default configuration and stay away from trying to tweak what's included and what's excluded from the profile. And only in very rare cases, when you know you have an application and you know you have a workload that require those particular folders to be excluded or included, then go ahead and start adjusting the default profile.
Perfect. And is it possible to have alerts configured while scaling up or down? Krishan?
So if I get that question correct, alerts in terms of adding more session hosts to your host pool. So you can build that yourself while using Azure Automation, or use the auto-scaling solution that we have that is using Azure Automation as well. So everything, because we leverage the Azure platform, is possible to create in a way of getting alerts or do an action and reaction kind of approach. So that's supported. If you want to do it on monitoring, as an example, we this week released as well Azure monitoring workbooks that you can use, and you can configure custom alerts in there as well to proactively monitor your environment. So.
Perfect. Thanks. Stefan, this is for you. Yes. Is it possible to store MSIX VHDs in a storage account? In our testing, we could only get it to attach to a network share hosted on a VM.
It is possible to use Azure File Storage account to host MSX applications, particularly for MSX App Attach. The trick there is, especially as we're going to release the product, is that the file share, or the storage account in this case, needs to be accessible by the machine identity, not only by the user identity. So that requires for you to use MSI, a managed service identity, for all your machines, and from there, it's how it works.
Perfect. And as a follow-up question, will the MSIX app attached stay WVD exclusive, or will that also be made available on an on-premise environment, RDS environment?
So the honest answer is we want to make it available on premises, but before we go there, we have to make sure that it's ready to be used. And the easy way to do that is using it in WV, because then we manage the connectivity between the host and the storage account, and we can build all the expertise that we need when that is going to go to on-prem. And then in the on-prem situations, when that is in your data center, all bets are off on where the storage account is, what's the latency, what's going to be the performance.
Got it. Thank you.
So stay tuned is the answer.
Perfect. All right, here's the next one. Will it be possible to migrate former WVD deployments to the ARM deployment model? Stefan?
Yeah, I can take that one. So the answer is yes. We are working on a migration script that's going to be published officially by Microsoft. There are also a series of third-party community-driven solutions that you can use to migrate. In worst case scenario, and if you really want to cause you some pain to yourself, you can do it manually by exporting and importing the content of the WVD itself.
Perfect. Thank you. Here's the next one, and Stefan, this is probably for you again. When will it be possible to log into Windows Virtual Desktops with single sign-on from Azure AD joint devices, remote desktop client, and also Windows?
So that is something that we are working on, and it's a step-by-step process. So the very first feature that we're going to release is when both your client device and the VM are joined to the same domain, and then you'll be able to use single sign-on. And later next year, we'll have the situation where your device does not have to have a direct site of the domain controller. So again, stay tuned.
Perfect. John, this is for you. Will Windows Virtual Desktop with more robust applications like Autodesk or AutoCAD?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we get this question a lot because there's curiosity about whether or not latency-sensitive workloads will function with Windows Virtual Desktop. And the answer is yes. And we actually just recently published a case study of an energy company, Petrofac, that is using this for, I believe, design or graphics workloads. So you can find that on customers.microsoft.com. But yeah, for Windows Virtual Desktop, you can choose any virtual machine in any Azure region that's available. So that can be something with GPU or not. And I'll look to Stefan actually just to talk maybe a little bit about GPU partitioning or how to really think about using GPUs with Windows Virtual Desktop.
Yeah. So thanks, John. So when it comes to GPU partitioning, that was the question. That's one of the exciting new features around GPUs in WVD. Just the fact that you no longer have to dedicate the whole GPU to one of the users on the machine. You can, or having to over provision your machine just because there's no smaller size. When it comes to the discrete graphic cards that are accelerating your performance, this is definitely kind of one of the canonical examples for when WVD becomes really shines. There are a few challenges there, and usually it has nothing to do with the GPU, but it's the latency of your network. So keeping that to under 150 milliseconds is the key to get that seamless like Waco experience. And with the introduction of UDP, that will further improve the performance of the protocol and the graphic workloads in WVD.
Great. Thank you both. Krishan, this is for you. What strategies are there to provide assurance that the endpoint is trustworthy?
So the question is, if I understand it correctly, what are the strategies to make sure that the endpoint is protected? Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
Yes. So the great thing about Windows Virtual Desktop that we announced this week is that we have further Microsoft Endpoint Management integration, and as well as security suite that comes with that, with, for example, your E3 license. So if you have an Intune managed device that's joined to Azure AD, you can configure compliancy rules within conditional access, and you can connect to your Windows Virtual Desktop environment very securely, because you can filter either on that you have a compliant device that has like all the proper updates installed. You can enforce MFA because of that very easily, and you can filter on IP location as an example. And as further integration with Microsoft Defender ATP in Windows Virtual Desktop and as well on your physical desktop, that's a perfect combination to ensure secure remote work as an example. So
great, thanks. All right, what's the next one? Stefan, this is for you. When do you think scaling options will be available for personal pools?
So that will be the next feature that we are working on after we do the non-personal, which means next year.
Okay, that's great. Let's see. We have a few more coming through. So, Krishan, let me ask you this. What are the licensing requirements for Windows Virtual Desktop, and is there any major difference between the regular and the government versions?
Yeah, that's probably a better one for John.
Go for it, John.
Oh, happy to take licensing questions whenever they come. So it depends. One, I'll take a step back. It depends on what you're virtualizing. If you're virtualizing Windows Server with Windows Virtual Desktop, which is fully supported, you can use an RDS-Cal with active software assurance. If you are virtualizing Windows 10 or Windows 10 multi-session, it would just require a license such as Windows Enterprise E3, E5, or the Microsoft 365 versions of E3 or E5. There are some different licenses as well that are also supported, such as Business Premium, which is great for small and medium businesses, Frontline Worker SKU with the F3 SKU. So depending on what the workload and the needs of what's needed in the M365 suite, that could be great. And then A3 and A5 are also supported in education. The government SKU is G3 and G5, is if I'm understanding the question about what's the licensing requirement for there. Yeah. And that is also covered as well. Pending the like you're deploying in there, but otherwise you can use an existing commercial enterprise license as well. So just to flag those options.
Fantastic. Thanks, John. All right, a few more coming through. Looking at the recent announcements, the new upcoming feature to power on Windows Virtual Desktop session hosts upon connection looks great. How will this work from a user's perspective? Will the client display a message informing users the server is starting? Will this only work for personal desktops or pooled as well?
I can take that one. So for the moment, it's a step-by-step approach as any new feature. It will be for personal for the first iteration, and later we'll extend it to multi-session non-personal. The way it's gonna work, it's slightly TBD, but something in the line of when a user walks in and opens their client, walks in on their end device, opens their WVD client, they're gonna see that their particular desktop has some sort of an indicator saying like that the VM is off. They'll be able to click on that. That will trigger the powering on of the VM. And there will be corresponding messages to make sure that the user is aware of the state of their VM. And when the VM is finally booted up, they'll just get their session established.
Fantastic. Thanks, Stefan. Krishan, this is for you. What is the minimum number of users that that one needs to use to make WVD cost beneficial?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that differs to your budget, and of course, and yeah, it's different from any customer in my opinion. But what we see is that the real benefit starts at like 100. but you can use it for one user as well. So if you're a freelancer and just need one virtual desktop, you can use Windows Virtual Desktop as well. So no real limitations, but like 100 and above, that's where the real benefit starts.
Fantastic. And a follow-up question, it's a hypothetical situation. If you have 4 users on a pooled virtual machine with 2 vCPUs and 8 GB of RAM, how does the memory allocation work with multi-session? Will each user get 1 gig of RAM for their operations, or is it different?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So it operates the same as in a traditional VDI or RDS infrastructure based on Windows Server. So you just get your RAM, your memory allocated as part of a shared virtual machine. So you can take the full RAM if you want, and that gives a benefit as well. If you, for example, have 3 users that are just reading a document, and you have 1 user that is opening up like a browser that consumes more RAM, he can take the RAM of the other users as well. So that's only beneficial. So there's no allocation on that part.
Perfect. Thank you. Let's look at a few more here coming through. John, this is for you. Is WVD available in GCC?
Yes, it is available in GCC, but Stefan, if you want to talk through, I know we've received a bunch of questions over the past couple days around like, are there any differences? Where is it available, and how to think about the differences between a GCC deployment and a commercial deployment?
Yeah, thanks, John. So as John said, the short answer, yes, it is available. There's a slightly different process there of how new features make it to GCC. Mainly, so we do our main work, and new features will be posted only in the commercial cloud, the public one, and from there they will mature. They will be going through the phases of private, public, GA. Once a feature is GA, we are obligated in our promises that in 30 days that feature will make it to the corresponding government cloud. So if you're looking to test a new feature, don't expect to have the public preview in any of the GCC clouds. From deployment perspective and tooling perspective, same applies. So there was a question earlier on an earlier session about the templates. Those will be also available in the different clouds. So you obviously don't expect to have the ARM template that works for the public cloud to be the same that works for the government cloud. You have to use the corresponding ARM template for the government cloud. So these are kind of the nuances there. Lack of public preview it's just straight to GA, and the tooling, make sure that you're using the right tools and you're not deploying to the public cloud when you think you need to be deploying in the government cloud.
Fantastic. Thank you both. All right, Christian, this is for you. What would be the best practices for securing your Windows Virtual Desktop infrastructure?
Yeah, that's another great question, and in extent to the answer I already shared earlier regarding how to connect to Windows Virtual Desktop securely from your own, like bring your own device or an Intune managed one. So to secure the Windows Virtual Desktop environment, you can use MFA and all those components that come with your M365 E3 or E5 license, which brings, for example, Microsoft Defender, ATP, and other components that you can use out of the security stack. But out of like just Azure in general, your Windows Virtual Desktop environment is already secure because you leverage all the investments we do to keep and to improve the security of Azure globally. Because every customer that runs on Azure benefits from that, and we invest for all our customers. So it's very easy to just adapt that and use Azure as a footprint to enter in a very highly secure platform. So that's probably the best answer. And what I would like to say as well is that we have very good MVPs here as well, answering your questions in the chat. So I just want to say great job, guys, because it goes really fast to see how they respond. So
yes, fantastic panel we have. Great. Thanks, Christian. Stefan, this would be for you. Any tool to shrink FS Logic's profiles? They're quite large with the Office container enabled.
Well, we should probably have a conversation on why you need the Office container enabled. Usually just the FS Logic profile by itself works fine. The Office container profile being a subset of the larger FS Logic profile. But let's get straight to the point. There is not an officially blessed Microsoft tool that allows you to shrink the FS Logic profiles, either the natural one or the one with just Office. However, there are certain third-party tools that some of our MVPs have released that you can use to do that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. In addition to that, in the earlier questions I shared, aka.ms/FSLogic's best practices. If you go to that page, in the last section, there's a maintenance script that you can use as a community initiative, as Stefan was saying.
Perfect. Thanks, Christian. All right. Let's keep on going. Okay. Christian, this is for you. Can you update the virtual machine image and refresh all the hosts in the host pool, or do you need to create a new host pool for every new image?
Yeah, this is a great question because one of the PMs that is leading all the Azure Portal initiatives is on the chat as well. It's Pavitra, and she, I don't know if it was yesterday or a couple of days back, but she released the option to update your images as well in existing host pools. So great work, great improvement. So that basically means that if you do an image update, you can just go to your existing host pool and add new machines based on a new image that you create, either via Azure Managed Images or via the Shared Image Gallery. So you don't have to recreate the host pool. And we made some improvements this week to make it even easier. So I would suggest to take a look.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you, Christian. Here's another one. Stefan, maybe this is for you. Do end users need to log on twice before they can RDP into the session host?
Well, if under log on twice, we mean that they have to authenticate against Azure Active Directory to be able to obtain their what we call the web feed, which is the resources published by their IT admin. And then a second time when they actually are accessing the particular resource, then the answer is yes. And that's the whole journey to single sign-on, where that will not be required and be configurable. In some situations, it's desired to have the two-step approach. In some, you want the one-step approach.
Fantastic. Thanks, Stefan. Christian, this is for you. Is it possible to connect to a Windows Virtual Desktop session to assist the user by through screen sharing?
So connecting like as is from the endpoint, that's not possible yet. It's possible if you share, for example, your desktop and then you share your credentials as well. What you can do to shadow or remote control your Windows Virtual Desktop session, I think that's the question. You can use either remote assistance or quick assist, which is now built in Windows 10 single and multi-session, which you can easily pop up, log on with your Azure AD credentials, and then you get a code that you need to give to your help desk employee, and then you can do screen sharing and either view or share your screen or take over control. So that's all built into Windows 10, and it's called Quick Assist.
Perfect. And Christian, while another one for you while you're on camera is, do we get billed when the users log off?
Can you repeat that once more? Do we get?
Does a customer get billed for using Windows Virtual Desktop once the users have logged off?
So there are different answers to that. If the machine is still running, they get billed because the machine is still running. If they shut down the machine and combine it with VM on Connect or start on Connect, a new feature, then you can configure, if you log off, you shut down your machine as an example, and then it will go in deallocated state and it stops charging cost on your Azure bill. So the machine needs to be turned off and in a deallocated state.
Perfect. That makes sense. And can you share some insight on what most of our customers do? How do they manage their Windows Virtual Desktop instances?
Yeah, so the vast majority of our customers are using Windows 10 multi-session in a pooled approach, and they use either power management scaling tooling that we provide via Azure Automation, and they make sure that they have like between 8 and 7 in the evening, like 100% of the machines up and running, and after that they spin them down to, for example, 30% of the availability, and then they save cost on that. The other hand of customers that we have is using reserve instances, so they pay beforehand for the cost that they eventually will use, and then it doesn't matter if you turn your machines on or off because you already paid for it, and you get that in an additional discount because you give commit on those resources. So
perfect, Prashant. Thank you. And I'm being told we're at time, so thank you, everyone. Thank you all the experts for answering all the questions, and thank you the attendees for posting such amazing questions. It has been great. Thank you. And here are some resources for you to look at before you sign off. Thank you, everyone.